in a place where most of the time programs came to teach people how to garden. I found 45 of them in the 4-block radius. Our church also was making a shift at the time from service to supporting people's gifts. So that right there was the combination of us doing that. But the thing I was so surprised at is when you sat down and become present to those gifts, it became important for people to say somebody's there listening. So we went after the first 8 months, gathering people together to share their gifts and talents. I started making connections with people who I go to church with. It's a predominantly white church in a Black neighborhood. And what we did was started connecting people based on their interests, their energy, and their gifts and talents. So what that meant is people got in places where and met people that they normally wouldn't meet. And so some of the things that ended up happening with the gardeners is that there were some connections with the local hospital, who provided a $40,000 grant to build infrastructure to buy produce from gardeners in our neighborhood. So we could have had programs, but what we did is make connections that build a community, economy, and mutual delight. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any comments or questions, any clarifying questions or challenges.
Well, I have a question, Dion, and my question is, this phrase has been brought up several times already. I think it would be helpful if you would describe how community delight fits into this.
Mutual delight. So one of the things that mutual delight is joy. So when people have mutuality together, so when you put a group of artists in the room, right, you don't need an agenda. They all care about the same thing, right? And lots of times we stuff out mutual delight with agendas, but mutual delight is the mutual care and concern. So, and that is built through the practicing of building and cultivating authentic relationships. So, which we'll talk about that structure in a little bit. Does that answer your question, Rick?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else comments or before I move? What are the things that people that we say in need lack? What is the thing that they lack most?
We most often hear when we talk to people, they lack food, they lack clothes, they lack money. It tends to be around physical things, stuff that they lack.
They also lack confidence.
They lack trust.
Trust.
I just come to think they might potentially lack socially acceptable norms and values pertaining to the community in which they live in.
I will say, I think sometimes they just lack an invitation to join in.
Mm. And maybe sometimes we miss the invitation to join in with them. I think
Absolutely.
part of the thing that that I've learned in this work is the lack is the need to be needed. So everybody wants to be a contributor or a producer. The problem is that sometimes the basic things that y'all just talked about, I agree with almost all of those things, trust being one of those. And programs don't fit that. And so which ways can we connect people in a much more meaningful and deeper way? And how do we get to the point that people start to trust? They
So,
lack
do you
relationship.
mind,
Yeah.
can I just add, the two words that jumped out were the lack of trust and confidence. And that's a bilateral flow, right? Because institutions lack trust and confidence that with money, which is why people are poor, people have the ability to make good decisions for themselves. And so even as we try to center this conversation in the space of asset-based community development, that's something that needs to be interrogated, in that if we don't trust that people can make good decisions, or whatever decision, because none of us make good decisions all the time. If we don't invest in that level of confidence, then again, whether intentional or not, you're still situating yourself in the center of the conversation.
I think
Absolutely.
that's a really good point, because I think those of us that tend to be the helpers, one of our hardest things to overcome is helping too much. You know, as an occupational therapy practitioner, I had to spend a whole day of clinicals with my hands in my pockets because I had helped a patient too much the day before. And that was a really good lesson for me that's come over now. I think the hardest thing to help a community overcome, and it's been one of our hardest things, is to get people past the idea that this is all about stuff, that what we in particular at Common Grace Ministries does is about stuff. It just isn't. And it's really hard to overcome that in a culture where we have years and years of one-way giving behind us, and no invitation, no asking, no trust in the people that we're helping. I love those concepts that, you know, I love that Shauna's mutuality, and that trust being both ways, and that confidence being both ways.
Absolutely. The other, and I think that confidence is also, what helps cultivate those are these intangible currencies. So trust, how do we build trust? We spend time and be present and be honest. We have radical hospitality and radical grace, right? And we mean it. The other is social capital, that, training. If I lived on the model that I had to formally be in train, I wouldn't be here doing this work. But the group of people around me trust and believe that my gifts are real. So one of the things they do is connect them, right? So a lot of the times that people would come to our food pantry, Shauna and I's pastor and friends often says, if it's better to give than receive, why are we always on the giving end? Allow other people to give. So we started doing the practice when people started. We don't have a food pantry anymore. We done away with that years ago. But when people, we started to phase out the food pantry by asking people, what gifts do they bring? And it would throw people off. But by the end, people would leave without the food we were actually going to give them, and had to come back because they so enjoyed the time. A lot of that is about saying, how do we shift the question, right? And then the next thing we did was figured out who in our congregation, who in our networks who would enjoy hanging out with this person. And every single time we did that things start to blossom. So people's social networks grow, right? They already had the gifts, right? But they were really untapped and unused because people didn't know about it. So I'm saying that's one piece. The other great piece of a currency is celebrating. Then we talked about confidence. The idea, I don't think, I've been married for like 20 years, and all the time growing up, I never had a birthday party until I was like 35. And I've been 35 for like 20 years. No, I'm just kidding. But my wife, I go through depression and I get really down. I can't move. My wife tricked me out the house, utilized my friends, took me to a movie. I come back. And this is in the middle, probably in the first 3 years of me cultivating a roving listener. And all my good friends, about 50 friends, showed up at my house. I come back to the house and all these people, and it made me wet, because that the biggest, the confidence builder is having the people who love you around you. So parties. And we took, after that practice, what we did in the congregation, but in our community, is to really start honing in on building capacity by celebrating publicly to groups of people the gifts and talents that come out that hadn't often been seen. So, and one of the ways that what ended up happening after several of those parties, we measure in a 5-block radius or 10-block radius around our neighborhood, in the last 6 years, about $8 million touched the hands of people in that 10-block radius because of the celebration. And we know that because we go back to those people and ask them how they got connected. They said, well, at this party, I met this person that was the CEO of the Central Indiana Community Foundation, right? And so no one knew in these celebrations that people had these gifts. When they met people in their authentic self, that celebration also led into other things. It led into mutuality. It led into building economy. And most important, it built community so people won't be lonely. So those currencies become important. So after connecting those, one of the things you could do in your organizations or with the Noble Way community is find ways to publicly celebrate the gifts of people. I mean, Noble Way does it on their website when they do their videos, which I really like. Any thoughts or questions, or let's jump into a conversation, short conversation. Does this make sense to people?
Yeah,
April,
it makes sense. I do think it makes sense. Thank you.
I really feel like it's just a shift in how we're thinking about how we communicate and help our neighbors. I love, Angie, that you've changed them to neighbors. It's just a way of changing how you're thinking about how you're providing help, to make them more independent and change the cycle.
Awesome. So we have, I'm going to bring Angie back to set up a story.
So one of the people that we've met through our work at Common Grace Ministries, his name is Wayne Sumner. And Wayne lives at Maple Crest. He works at Maple Crest. And we've come to know him as a friend over the last, 3 or 4 years. And Wayne had a bit of a dilemma, and we were able to bring some resources together. And as you watch this video, think back about those assets that we talked about, because many of them are present in this story. So this is Wayne Sumner from Maple Crest and our own Noble County Sheriff Max Weber.
Well, asset-based community development principles are rooted in 6 areas that are present in thriving communities. Those areas include individuals, associations, institutions, physical space, economy, and culture. We're here with Sheriff Max Weber and Wayne Sumner to talk about a relationship in our community that pulls all of these things together. I met Wayne through my work at Common Grace Ministries. And when I was talking with Wayne one day, I asked him, Wayne, what do you want to learn? And Wayne, what'd you tell me?
Security.
Yeah.
To keep people safe. A lot of people, when me and Jody started this up, we talked about it when I first moved in there. I seen how bad it was. We had talked about it. It took us a while to ponder on it, and she wanted to make sure it was okay with me, that I was comfortable and safe of doing it because of the danger of the job and everything. But the people and the kids that are living there meant a lot to me because of my daughter. I lived there too. So I took it upon myself to protect the kids, the women, and even men. I know sometimes men don't need it, but it's for everybody, and I'm more into protecting and keeping the place safe and having more people move in there when we can, trying to make the place better because we're getting a lot of compliments and everything.
And what else do you do?
Oh, I do a lot there. I do maintenance. I run the boiler room that is very dangerous. It has gas and everything, and I gotta make sure there's water in it so it won't blow half of the block away from what I'm told. But I mop floors. I try to keep the floors clean there. I do the staircases. I try to do everything. I wash the parking lot. I'm on call. I look around for fire or anything that's kind of unsafe or anything.
And you're the manager when the manager's not.
Yes, I'm the second highest manager there. I run the office. I sit in there and watch and rent out rooms and stuff and call.
So when I asked you about meeting with Sheriff Weber, what did you think about that?
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was neat because I'm trying to get into security and help out people.
Matt, when I brought this idea to you, what went through your head?
It was an opportunity to assist someone who cared about his community, especially where his living environment was. And if I could provide any guidance, I mean, I was all for that because, you know, you want to make sure that I knew exactly where he was living at and some of the issues and problems we were having in that Kendallville area. And so whatever we could do to educate him to be more proactive within his little environment there, it was a win-win for everybody.
So what ended up happening is Max and Wayne, we got them together and they spent about an hour together. Max, can you tell us about that conversation that you had with Wayne?
Yeah, as Pastor Angie said that she kind of introduced us. We got together over at her office, and you could just see the enthusiasm in Wayne, how he was wanting to learn and put forth an effort, and he was drawn in with almost every word I had to say. Not that I am the best speaker there is, but you know, he really cared about what he was wanting to learn. And, you know, so, I mean, you know, whatever guidance I could give him, he was just like a sponge absorbing that. So he would truly cared about making his home safe for everyone in that area.
So Wayne, how about you? How did you feel about that conversation?
I felt great, and I soaked every minute up, and whatever he told me, I soaked it up, and I kept it. It was a challenge. I have learned a lot. I'm still learning because you got to really keep you cool.
So one of the things that you were wanting to have or wanting to do is to get the right equipment.
Yes, me and Jody. Jody has stopped me from walking out. We're still having issues. I'm not allowed to walk out at night unless I really absolutely have to be out, then I need to be. But Jody told me to stop going out at night because I don't got nothing to protect my back or my chest. Because we're dealing with different people, different attitudes, and the danger of the surroundings. And we got light out there and stuff, but it's just I don't got no protection, and I'm trying to work on it, trying to get those a bulletproof vest for my back and chest and stuff, trying to work on it.
Then we also made sure you had some good connections and the kind of locations.
Yes.
That's been going well.
Oh yeah, I really look upon them guys. The neighbor across the street, he asked me what I'm doing. I said, I'm just out walking around, checking the property. I do security. He goes, I like that. I see you out here looking over at my place. And I said, yeah, it's just like a little neighborhood watch. It's just, if I see anything, I call. So he said, thank you for that. But
Wayne was one of those individuals who didn't hesitate to confront someone. And I remember during our conversation, and I think he took that all to heart, that we encouraged him to become a better witness. And that way he could report what's going on to the actual Kenville Police Department or the authorities that he had to contact. Everything that we had talked about that morning for that hour, he put all those, I guess, that plan of action, he put it into play. And he understood where I was going with that, and he understood what it meant to be a better witness. And that to be able to report what was going on and what he was seeing helps the police officers out that come to his aid when he calls down there.
Max, do you remember asking Wayne when we were about ready to wrap up that day that we all met together? You asked Wayne a question about, Wayne, if there's so much danger, why do you stay there? What you said was, who would take care of them?
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes to Wayne's passion, to the gifts that he has of taking care of people. One of the number one thing we talk about in asset-based community development is the individual and the gifts, skills, talents, passions, and capacities that they bring to their neighborhood and to their neighbors. And, Wayne will drive people to us at Common Grace Ministries when they need help. He'll come with them so that if they aren't feeling comfortable meeting with us, if they don't know us, if Wayne's there and Wayne knows us, they trust Wayne and they trust us. And I think that speaks volumes. And as for Max was just newly our sheriff when all of that was taking place. And, he jumped right in, and Max goes way above and beyond the duties of a sheriff to take time out of what I know are busy days to sit down and meet with people who are living out their passion. So I think we're very fortunate here to have two people that are bringing together these 6 areas. All 6 of these areas are present in this story. And I just think we're very, very fortunate to have Max and Wayne as part of our community.
That was awesome. That was awesome. We have one more video, I think, Angie. You want to cue that up? You want to talk about your learning journey to Indianapolis?
Angie, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. As we knew that we had to learn more, we wanted to see what this looked like, especially the roving listeners. And I had met Mike Mather, who was the pastor at Broadway. And Mike is the one that brought Diamond together with us. And so we went down and we actually went out roving with 2 amazing young people who, if you can paint a picture of what this looks like in a community, Jalen and Jada, boy, they paint the picture. And this video is going to give you a little bit of a taste of what we saw the day when we were in Indianapolis.
There's 3 reasons for them to do this. That is to cultivate community among people. The second thing is cultivate economy. It means more money ends up in the hands of people. And the third thing is it cultivates more mutual delight because people don't live on bread alone. because we are concerned about people having happy, meaningful lives, we went to the local school of public health and we said, help us measure mutual delight. And they said, well, we can establish a baseline of parties and see how many parties there are that go on now in the community, and over the course of years, do that number of parties increase? And if the number of parties increase, we figure mutual delight is increasing. One of the reasons we intentionally were connecting people both inside and outside of the community around gifts that they share is because when people get to know one another, that's how people get jobs. People in low-income communities or communities on the fringe of all SARD, disabilities, other things, is people are isolated. And so what we're doing is putting people into situations where they're not so isolated anymore. So we don't have a jobs program, but people get hired.
So we don't really go out and necessarily listen for concerns. I mean, if you listen for concerns, you're going to get street lights and roads and stuff. And what we want to know is what gets that person off the couch to do. What are they doing that they love or people love that they do? And that's a whole different conversation than necessarily what their concerns are. In a perfect world, we would try to hopefully get to see their gift in action and meet people that have that feel the same way about, or say, hey, this person is an excellent cook, or they're great at taking care of the elders or children or whatever, gardening or whatever gift it is. So hopefully we could we get to see that type of gift and talent in action. We would be also like to play connector. So we want to, if they're not getting paid for this, or we would like to see them get paid for their gift, or if they don't need money, that we'd like to see them offer their gift to somebody that needs that gift.
I have been a roving listener for 10 years, from me starting from when I was 12 years old. I've seen change, because when I was just that 12-year-old little girl to about 15, 16, everybody was still outside on the porch. So what I mean by that is they probably were struggling at the time. Now when I rove, it's nobody out. We have to make time. So by me saying that is they're working now, they found resources. By us going out with them, connecting them with other people in the community, they found resources within their own community. When our conversations are started off by, they were always asking for help, and now they ask, what can we do? Now they're looking for artists, daycares, they're looking for
just new skills.
New skills, but we also have theater, people who want to run their own theater now. So it's different resources from when we used to rove. They were looking for help, they were looking for food, they were looking for shelter.
And we found out we had poets, lawyers, and musicians and gardeners in our community that we found out about because we having these conversations, building these relationships with our neighbors, and it's bring joy to our community ears. Like, wow, we got that. So now I feel like I could be that when I grow up. And we had teens that wanted to become lawyers and stuff like that, and want to figure out more about it because we connected them with a guy in our community that stayed on the 2900 block of Delaware, who was a prosecutor, and he gave them tips about what they should do and what his story was. And he came from the far east side of Indianapolis, and he talked about how he was homeless and stuff. He had to sleep in his car when he was growing up, and how he talked about how his story was he never gave up, and it's all about perseverance. We've met a person who used to play basketball, a coach that played basketball. So what we did was we had a lot of kids in the community that wanted to learn how to play basketball and stuff like that. So we connected them and their parents together, and he became training for the kids to be better basketball players.
So roving listeners pay attention. So I would say listening is a part of paying attention, but I think over the years we've started saying more about how this work is really paying attention, because sometimes it's your nose that tells you, sometimes it's your eyes that tell you, sometimes it's your ears. When Rachel, who was one of the pastors here, left, she used to oversee a lot of the administrative stuff with the summer, but she also provided kind of direct leadership. Well, she left, and then I didn't have extra time, so I turned to Jalen and Jada, and I said, okay, you're in charge. Rachel used to do a lot of the hiring and firing, but they do it now. And man, if somebody get fired before, when Rachel would do it, people would come and complain. When they fire somebody, it's like, okay.
And is that because they know them?
Yes.
Because they're part of the community?
Yes.
That was an awesome video.
I love the enthusiasm in Mike's voice at the end there. Yes, yes.
So we're going to go after this unpacking. We're going to let you get a few minutes to get some refreshments or food. We're going to work right through this so we can cover as much as we can cover. But I wanted to unpack those 3 videos. And what did you notice in any of the video that struck you? What struck you, what struck you in the 3 videos that were shown?
This is Tenna. I really liked it when the young woman said that the roving listener said that they went from asking for help to asking what they could do.
The one thing that sticks out to me is the passion in each person's voice.
I appreciated the maturity in Jalen and Jada's young lives, that they were able to recognize that because people weren't on their porches meant that they were working. That's pretty deep. And that for a 12-year-old to take on that role that she did really says a lot about her character and the talent that she possesses.
I would like to add to that, having a youth voice, there's something so like organic and untouched and untapped in youth. They usually have the solutions to a lot of societal answers and in the most simplistic way. And so having them at the table in terms of decision making, especially when it's community, because they are the future, is really an essential component.
It's a really good point. I remember Jalen and Jada's family is the 2nd largest family in the neighborhood. They often been recipients of services from very poor services from our congregation. And we didn't, for years, look at their family as somebody that was gifted. And I remember in the shift when I started roving, and I remember passing their house all the time, and I ended up being good friends with their mom. She ended up being part of our consulting company. She would travel, and she has a lot of kids and grandkids, right? Big full family. And I remember Jada and Jalen, all their cousins tagging along, and Montel. They weren't getting paid for it at the time, but it has struck me, their reflections. One of the things I remember, it was Jada and Montel popped up to a neighbor's house. He's passed away now, but him and his wife were married for 45 years. And they wrote a story about that. And especially what's really important is that it kind of taught us as adults that we shouldn't just be doing kids programming, babysitting programs. And so we invested in them to meet their neighbors. And it started out with 7 of them. And I remember being so young, walking. And it's right now they run their own budget, right? They write their own grants. Jalen goes to Vincennes and will be graduating this December. But this is his work for life.
One of the things that really sticks with me, and I don't know if people picked it up really in that that video where Jalen was talking, but these roving listeners truly know their neighborhood. We heard in the video, Jalen's talking about the gentleman who was a lawyer who lived in the 2800 block of something. That happened all day long when we were talking to them. So that's just the one piece of that we used in the video. But anytime that they were talking about anyone in their neighborhood, they knew exactly where they lived. And that just goes to show how much of this work is in their hearts. They love this work. They love their neighborhood. And to be able to share that kind of information and know that their neighborhood that deeply just really goes to show their passion and the commitment and the work that they're doing in their community.
I wanted to add really quickly. I was down on that trip and worked with Jenna on the video, although she did most of the work. I just did the interview. She did all the hard part. But sometimes when you see a video and you have music in a video and you have other things, you think, okay, they just picked the best parts out. What I came away from on that trip, which I hope will permeate the session that we have today, is this is possible. This is really possible. This is not some kind of aberration. It's really possible to get people out, getting to know their neighbors, getting to connect talents, getting to network, getting kids involved in doing that. And I think the story with Jalen and Jada is really remarkable, that Mike got to the point where he just said, hey, why don't I have them running things? So the passion that you feel and you sense in that video is 100% real.
I think Jalen is on. Jalen.
How you guys doing today?
What's up?
Hey, Jalen.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Jalen, we just watched the video of y'all roving. I wanted, I don't know how long you've been on here in the comments. Shauna is on there too, so you might be happy to see her. How much has this work not only impacted what you saw in the neighborhood, but how has this impacted the way you live your life?
Yeah, it impacted me a lot actually, because growing up, I was a kind of shy kid. I was like stay to myself and stuff like that. So it was, even though I had a big family, it was hard for me to come out of my comfort zone and stuff like that. So one year I was about, I would say probably 11 or 12 years old, and I was just at my friend's house. We was playing basketball in his backyard, and I seen my older son was in the other youth in the community out in the neighborhood, just roving, just having a conversation with the neighbors. And they stopped by and had a conversation with us. And us being so young, we were just so curious about what they was doing. And I said to myself, I'm gonna try to do that next year, get involved with that next year, so it can help me become a more vocal speaker and stuff like that. Because I was playing sports at the time, and my coaches wanted me to become a vocal leader and stuff like that, and just get to the teammates and stuff like that. So I did it the next year, and it helped me out a lot. I remember you had brought people in for training, and you just put us all on the spot. I'm like, I was so nervous and stuff like that. But it prepared me to go outside in our neighborhood and just fluently have conversation with our neighbor without just being nervous and stuff like that. Like we've been knowing them forever and stuff like that. And plus, I've been always living in my community, and I didn't really know every neighbor in my community, and that allowed me to speak to more of my neighbors and grow a relationship with them even more.
Yeah. Anybody got questions for Jalen? I have a couple more, but I want other people to ask questions.
Jalen, we know you're at Vincennes. What are you studying?
I'm studying business management. Yeah, I'll be done, like Demon said, really like in a couple of weeks, because we coming home early for Thanksgiving break, and then we just have a final due after that, and then I'll be finished.
And what do you plan to do with that?
What I plan on doing with that is I'm big in like I'm a sneakerhead, so I'm big in like I want to open up my own shoe store, own shoe apparel store down the road and stuff like that. So I want my own shoe store, and then I want to get into real estate and stuff like that. And also, I just want to manage some business before I even get into that, so I can learn the ropes even more, like physically.
Jalen, this is Rick. I have a question for you. So what would you tell leaders in a community about how they can get young people like yourselves who started so young to believe in and take the bull by the horns and actually go out and make changes in the community? Because I think, for a lot of young people, that may be a foreign concept. What would you tell leaders in a community?
What I would tell them is actually get paid for it, but not even just about the paying stuff. You just got to find the right one young person in your community who is just stand out, and they'll follow the leader. Actually, that's how it actually all started. DMIT, like it was more about older cousins and older friends in the neighborhood, like Cameron, the Lizzie's and stuff like that. That was going on these walks before they was even getting paid. They were just in the community just have conversation. And sometimes in the summer day, you just bored and stuff like that, and you just want to tag along and just be curious with your older friends in your community and older siblings. So you just got to have the right people who just want to be out there and just do that work, actually.
Yeah, that's super important. A lot of people I see around the country that's attempted to do these roving listeners, and they fail because they're thinking about replicating. What we think about is multiplying. And one of the things that Jalen talked about is the untraditional or conventional ways to look at mentorship and friendship as a way to build capacity. So it wasn't, this pipeline was about, somebody talked about culture earlier, was about culture, that people had so much of a passion for utilizing their gifts, but nobody was listening to them.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I was like 10 and I just seen like just 20 of the youth just out in the neighborhood just having conversation. It was different groups. It was just so big a group. A group was like 20 to 25 people just out there just getting having conversation. It was just, I just wanted to do it. I followed the leader. I just said, I want to do that stuff.
So, Jalen, a follow-up question. Now you are the leader, the co-leader, you and your sister. What is that? How is that transition? What does that mean now to be in charge of like the community building and writing the grants, looking at your own budget, doing philanthropic giving? Y'all give out stuff to neighbors, money and awards or whatever. What does that mean now?
Well, yeah, what it means to me is it's a lot because, I come up in a community that's, poverty and stuff like that. And I think in our neighborhood, as when you're young, you always want to give back to your community and stuff like that. And so me being so young that I am right now, and when Pastor Mike passed over the reins to me I was like 18 or 19, I was coming home my first year out of college. He was like, Jalen, what you think about taking over the reins and running the program this summer? I was just so happy to him let me do that because as a kid, you want to give back to your community and stuff like that in any way you can. So that was a blessing for me.
So thank you, Jalen. Anybody have any other final questions or thoughts or a celebration for Jalen?
I've got one. Does Jalen think that you need a group of people to go out into the community to talk as roving listeners, or can just like one person or two people go out or is it more effective if you have 5 or 6?
Yeah, I would say it actually doesn't matter how many people you got, because like if DMI tell you, when he first got here, it was just him actually just going out in the community, just having conversations with families in the community. Like I always tell this first story of how my family first met DMI, and he first moved into the community. He had long dreads and he was walking with his daughter, and he approached my mom and my aunt, and they was like, they thought he was homeless. And who is this homeless man? His daughter to our porch and stuff like that. And then it was all history after that. Just going down and having conversations with him. I guess my mother and them, they started following him as a leader and just going out in the community to have more conversation with these neighbors. And they also, because my family been in that community for generations, and I think they helped him along the road with meeting new neighbors and stuff like that, and just having conversations just to build up our community.
I have one more question. How is the work continuing because of the pandemic? Like, do you still have roving listeners during the pandemic, or is that happening a different way?
Yeah, we had a small group this past summer, actually, because of the pandemic, around six or five people. And so we just wanted to just practice really just social distancing and stuff like that. And it was a challenging year, I'm not gonna lie. But we still probably had one or two gatherings where we connected with our community and stuff like that. So I think that was a plus, that we still got the chance to like have some gatherings and connect some of our neighbors together. Like we had a gathering over just musicians this past summer. April was there, and that was a good thing because we had Orlando exchanging contact with other musicians in the community that they wanted to learn more ways how they can alter their craft and perfect their craft of music and stuff like that. So
Jalen also helped me use one of my neighbor's gifts, which was Miss Lee, who I noticed was clearly a really good host because I've been to one of her parties. And so when Roving Youth got going, we had a little gathering with a bunch of my neighbors who are newcomers and don't know a lot of the folks who've been in this neighborhood for decades. And they got to meet the Roving Youth, and we all sat outside. We spread the chairs apart. People wore masks, but it worked out, and everyone was really considerate. And it blew, my neighbors away because we're in the same neighborhood. We're in the kind of the northwest section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of close this out. Jalen, you're welcome to hang out for a minute if you want, but wanted to take a break. I also wanted to close this session is that, that the magic about this is that it's already in your neighbor communities. Yeah. Rural, it's already there. When somebody asks, is it better to go out as a team? The best thing that I really had was a structure that was able to land the gifts and be able to mobilize those gifts. So though I was born doing this work, Jalen M was born doing this work, the people in communities already like Wayne, they do the work whether we know it or not because they're very well connected. But there has to be a structure. And so when we come back, that's what we'll be talking about. How do you cultivate a structure, and what is the differences between the structures we currently live in and the structures that we aim to cultivate to support the work?